Hi everybody, welcome to the 2020 North Downs Way 100 race briefing. My name's James Elson, I'm the race director at Centurion Running. First time we've ever done anything like this, very unusual year clearly so far. First of all, massive thanks to all of you for sticking with us through this process and being willing to come out and race. As always, our priority is a safe event. If we didn't feel we could deliver this safely, we wouldn't be doing it. At this stage, the only thing that will derail the event is a tightened government lockdown or local lockdown along the route. We all know that's the case. We'll have to roll with the punches if that happens, but obviously this is Wednesday prior to the race and we are all systems go. Usually I like to keep race briefings short, 4 or 5 minutes maximum with just the key information for the day. Unfortunately, this will be a little bit longer just because there's the whole COVID compliance overlay and the COVID secure environment that we're creating here at this event. And I need to convey those changes to you. There are also a number of slight changes on the regular race weekend that you guys need to be aware of. Most of them, about 95% of them, have already been communicated to you, but there are a few that you need to know and be aware of beyond this point. So firstly, this is 10th anniversary of this event. We've had to work extremely hard with the landowners, the National Trails, the insurers, UK Athletics to ensure we have all the relevant permissions. We have all of those. We've had to lean very heavily on the relationships we've built over the years, but we've been welcomed with open arms by almost everybody, and I think there is a big appetite for us to try and get back to normal. This event is almost entirely outdoors, and we feel can be conducted safely. The major, obviously, transmission risk points are the checkpoints, so I'll talk you through how they're going to work. But essentially, the first and foremost thing we need to ask you guys as runners for on the day is to please act with that extra layer of empathy for other trail users, to just go above and beyond wherever you can to ensure that we're not exacerbating any fear or perception of fear for things returning to normal and events taking place. What I mean by that is if you're on the trail and you come across other trail users, some of them will be very nervous, obviously. Clearly, we need to maintain social distancing at all times. On narrow bits of trail, that's going to mean at times stepping off the trail, allowing others to pass you. Please, whatever you do, at any pinch points or narrow sections of trail, make plenty of space for members of the public. Taking 10 seconds to do that is not going to cost you your event and will make all the difference with regards to going ahead safely in the near future, and obviously the long-term sustainability of this event too. I can't reinforce that point enough. We all need to go above and beyond and be responsible as runners to make sure that there is the perception of these events, that they are safe to continue with, because they are. But it will be those pinch points on the trail that are the major issues. So first and foremost, the one major change that you need to be aware of that I haven't yet communicated to you is that there is a new phone number for the medical team. That has been sent to you on the email this morning. But you should have that written down in your phones. Please refer to that email. If you want to write it down now, 07421 005 671. The Race HQ line is the same. That comes to me. If you have a problem on the day and it's not medical related, you can just call Race HQ and you'll get through to me. If you have a medical issue, you need to call that number, which is a chase number that all the ambulances and medical crews have, and or 999. If someone is in real difficulty, please just call 999. Whoever gets there first out of our medical team and the emergency responders from 999 is the best person to deal with the situation. Our medical team obviously have full cover for COVID compliance and will deal with any COVID related situation on the day. Should anyone be taken ill or show COVID symptoms, and then that person kept in isolation, we have the ability to deal with that. But obviously we're talking about the regular medical issues that you would see on the day too. I'm going to start beyond that, just that medical side of things, with the process of the race from here to the finish in kind of chronological order. Most of you will have received your bibs in the post. Okay, you need to have that on your front and on display at all times during the race. Okay, so come ready to start the race on race morning with that on. If you need to drop a drop bag, a finish bag, use the toilet or collect a bib on the day because you forgot it or it hasn't arrived in the post, you can go to Farnham Leisure Centre to perform any of those functions. The Leisure Centre toilets are open, the drop bag van will be available for you, the finish line bags can be taken there too. If you forget your bib or you haven't received it, we will have spares there with spare chips on the day. You will see Nikki, she'll issue you a new bib. If you do not need any of those things, you can go directly to the start line. The start line is just down the road on the North Downs Way from the giant North Downs Way copper effect sign that's on the crossroads just down from Farnham Station. Okay, you can either look on the GPX or you can follow our markings to the start. There will be a marshal in high-vis at that junction as well who will help you get to the actual start line. We will also be marking from the Leisure Centre to the actual start line, which is approximately a 7-minute walk, okay? So feel free, if you have crew on the day and you're not using drop bags, a finish bag, and you don't need the loo, to come straight to the start, okay? At the start, we will be taking your temperature with a temperature gun. It'll be myself and one other volunteer doing that with a clear plastic face shield on because we'll need to get a little bit closer to you. A meter should still be easily achievable. We'll take your temperature. You need to have a temperature obviously below 37.8 degrees centigrade, which is the government mandated. If you've got a temperature above that level, you need to isolate with potential COVID symptoms. And assuming your temperature is fine, you can immediately start the race. We have a 2-hour starting window, 5 AM until 7 AM. I can't be any clearer on this. If you try to start before 5 AM, we will have to hold you back. And if you miss 7 AM, you will not be able to start the race, because all of our cut-offs down the event, all of our permissions, the volunteers, timetables, everything else are fixed in place for a fixed cut-off based on that 7 AM start time. So please don't wander down to the start at 8 minutes past 7 and say, oh, sorry, I overslept a bit. You know, can I just jump in the race now? We will pack up the start line at 7 AM. Okay, so at 7 o'clock on the dot, the race start will disappear. So you must start before that 7 AM cut-off. We've asked you to please start based on how fast you anticipate finishing the race. We want the faster runners to start closer to 5 AM or at 5 AM through to the guys and girls who think they'll finish closer to the cut-off of 30 hours starting at 7 AM. The idea of that is purely to spread the field out as much as possible from the start. So if we started the faster runners later, they would catch the slower runners up at checkpoint 1 and you'd have this massive gathering and queues going into the checkpoint. This way, we can process everybody with the greatest possible spread from the start. Please don't show up at 5 AM if you are a 30-hour runner. Okay, you've got to try to help us and the volunteers do this safely. We need you to be honest with yourself about how long the race is likely to take you, especially given the weather conditions, which I'll come to in a minute. Please make sure you start relative to the time spread that we've posted on the website and all the mail outs, okay? No crew, pacers or spectators at the start for obvious reason. We can't have any gathering whatsoever. You will walk to the start line. We will take your temperature. We will ensure there's 20 or 30 seconds gap between you and the person in front. Off you go. You may start with somebody else up to a group of 6, as long as you're socially distanced from the start, and then you can be started together as a group. I don't think we're going to see more than 220 starters. So there will be adequate time to get everybody started with small gaps between everybody. I don't anticipate you queuing at the start for more than a couple of minutes. Probably not at all, okay? Out on the course, first major change. There is no checkpoint at Putnam, mile 6.5. We can't risk having the queues building up so early in the race. And that checkpoint at 6.5 miles is very rarely used by runners anyway. So we're going to completely do away with that location. And the first official checkpoint is at Newlands Corner. Newlands Corner is about 14.5 miles into the race. When you arrive at Newlands, you will see the template that all the other aid stations will follow down the course. You will come into a funnel, and if there's nobody in the aid station, you can sanitize your hands and come into one of the 3 tables that will be laid out in front of you. If you don't need the checkpoint, just make sure the timing beacon beeps on your way past. You can just continue round the aid station and down the course. There will be a marshal next to that hand sanitizer at the front of the funnel who will either tell you what's what in the checkpoint or tell you that you've timed in and can continue on down the course. When you come to the front of that funnel, if there's no queue, there'll be 3 tables. Each will have water, Tailwind, Coke, and then food laid out in mini Ziploc bags. Okay, you will fill your own bottles, having sanitized your hands, fill your own Coke, and take the food that you want in these mini bags. Okay, you shouldn't have to touch anything that anybody else has touched apart from the tap to the water container, which will be regularly sanitized by the volunteer. Once you've collected what you need, you will leave the checkpoint via the sanitizer on the way out, re-sanitize your hands, and off down the course. Okay, this is the safest possible way we can do this. And with 3 entry points to that checkpoint, we don't anticipate a queue building up for more than a couple of minutes for any of you at any time. This is our first time doing it. We will monitor that, but that's our anticipation. All the checkpoints down the course will be the same. They might have 2 tables instead of 3, but you will find the same system. If you want to use a checkpoint, sanitize on the way in. You will find that you are serving yourself a safe distance from everybody else before you move down the course, having sanitized on the way out. If you use an indoor checkpoint, you need to have a mask on. Think of an indoor checkpoint as you would a restaurant in the UK currently. If you're doing takeaway, mask on, grab what you need, leave, mask off. If you're going to sit down and eat, mask can come off because you're sitting in to eat, okay? The volunteers will advise of you when you arrive. Please have your own buff or mask, if at all possible, but we will provision masks to be available for you on entry to those checkpoints if you don't have yours on hand, okay? Please don't get upset with the volunteers if they're quite rigid with you and point out that you need to do X, Y, and Z. We're going to have to just be extra vigilant, extra careful, especially this first time. We've worked on a system we're really comfortable is going to be as risk mitigating as possible, but we need to be on the case, and the volunteers won't make any apologies for that. So just if we follow the protocol, it should be fairly intuitive, but just please listen to them and follow their guidance. In terms of your crews, you can have crews at all the locations you'll see on the crew tab on the website. I've just added in Hollingbourne and Charing back to the last 20 miles of the course. The reason we've done away with them in the past is because we've had issues with local complaints and noise and parking in those areas. They're very small villages. But I want you guys that want to be crewed throughout and to not use the checkpoints to be able to do so. And this, I believe, bridges that 20-mile gap at the end that existed before and allows you to be crewed in that final 20 miles. If you have a crew, this is so important. They must remain socially distanced and behave as if they are, an extension of you, the runner, obey all the government guidelines. We can't control those crew points. If members of the public see crew acting inappropriately or breaking government guidelines, that would almost definitely come back on us and create fairly major knock-on effects down the line. So please, please inform your crew that they just need to go above and beyond to ensure they're doing everything safely. We've said 2 crew people maximum in a maximum of 2 vehicles, okay? Now, ideally, you have 2 crew in 1 vehicle from the same household. Only 1 crew vehicle, please, at any one of the crew locations. So if you've got 2 crew in 2 different cars, please don't have them both come to a checkpoint crew location. Only 1 comes to the crew location. The other one can meet you somewhere else. Please try to obey those rules as much as possible. The crew locations are not massive anyway, and if we have 2 cars for each of the 100+ people who've got crews, 200 cars in those locations will really screw us. Finally, with crews, please obviously make sure that they are only going to those crew locations just before you're arriving. Please ask them not to show up at a checkpoint 7 hours ahead of you arriving, take up a valuable parking space. Just ask them to wait off-site and come in when you're anticipated through. Pacers can join you from Knockholt Pound. Knockholt Pound is not a crew point. Only a pacer can meet you in Knockholt. They'll need to wait either outside or in their vehicle. Luckily, it's going to be a very bright sunny day, so no problems there with them sitting around getting cold. You may be paced from Knockholt, but your crew can't meet you there. Okay, when you hand a pacer over, they can only hand over at one of the crew locations after Knockholt, and you may only have one pacer at one time. You can change pacers as much as you want, but the pacers must be listed on that track and trace sheet. Just on that track and trace sheet, if you haven't yet filled it in, and 153 of you have as of 10 o'clock this morning on Wednesday, please ensure you go back through the email and fill in that track and trace form. If you haven't given us your crew and pacer details on that track and trace form, they shouldn't be with you on the day. In terms of course, the course is identical to normal. The only change is after Box Hill checkpoint, which has moved to the other side of the road at West Humble Fields. You will not be able to miss it because you literally run past it. It's on the North Downs Way. There will be trail marshals out guiding you around the new section of the course. The reason we've changed that 1.5 miles just around Box Hill is to honour a request from the National Trust not to have hundreds of you streaming over what has been an incredibly busy public site during the whole of lockdown. You will not be able to maintain social distancing across the stepping stones and up that hill all the way and across the trig point. It would be rammed with people. So that will be marked. The GPX has been updated and is on the website. The rest of the course remains identical. The only other change, logistically, is the checkpoint at Reigate Hill is moving to the top of Fort Lane, which is about 300 metres before the car park at Ray Lane. Okay, so just be mindful of that as you come in to the Reigate Hill checkpoint. It will be very slightly earlier than normal. Again, it's on the trail. The volunteer will literally be standing there pointing you into the checkpoint. You will not be able to miss it. Okay. If you have been keeping an eye on the weather, you will see that it is set to be 29 degrees throughout most of Saturday afternoon. I don't need to tell you that that's going to feel extremely hot, especially in some of the more exposed areas, the chalky areas where the sun's reflecting back at you. I would strongly advise you to reduce your effort and your pacing strategy through Saturday lunchtime through the afternoon until the sun goes down and it cools down a bit. Because we've seen these conditions and temperatures at this race before and people will not all get it right. You just need to be patient, stay really on top of hydration, electrolytes, and then hence your fueling plan, your food intake will fall into place better. Just be patient. You've got 30 hours. You know, take the time that you need. Get that section right and you'll really enjoy the second half of the race, relatively speaking. Push too hard on that first afternoon and it's probably going to be a long night for you. Just to say that this race is not exactly 100 miles. Some of you who've seen many of my race briefings will probably be chuckling at this point. I always say the same thing. The actual course is just over 103 miles. If you come to us at the end and say, this course is long, we're going to nod our heads and say, we know it's a trail race and we know it's long. The reason I re-emphasise this is because if you're planning on shaving the cut-offs, you need to give yourself time for those extra 3 miles right from the start, okay? Don't come in to checkpoint 1 5 minutes inside the cut-off because pro rata further down the course, you will miss the cut-off. Just checking what else. Mandatory equipment. We're not checking that at the start. You must have that on your person at all times. We will do spot checks on the course. We have to uphold our commitment to the athletics permit and to the insurer. Now, that will be conducted by a volunteer in full PPE. You're not going to want to have your kit checked on the course. I don't want to have my kit checked on the course. I've had my kit checked at UTMB numerous times in the past. It's annoying. It takes a few minutes. But we have to do these things. So just be mindful that we're not going to kit check you at the start, but you may be kit checked on the course and or at the finish. So just before I come to the finish, the final thing to say is just with reference to the cut-offs and the sweeper minibus. If you miss a cut-off, won't necessarily know until after, because you have started between 5 and 7 a.m. We will be keeping a very close eye on those of you that are pushing cut-offs and try to catch you before you leave that aid station. But you should make a note of your start time and try to work out then what the cut-off will be at that relative aid station further down the course, okay? Try and police yourself. Most of you know anyway if you're missing cut-offs. The volunteers will try to advise you. If you're in doubt, ask a volunteer. They can come straight through to us or work it out for themselves. If you do miss a cut-off or you need to drop out, our sweeper minibus will be operating. They will only have a capacity of 7 seats and you will have to wear a mask on the minibus, okay? So just be patient in waiting for the bus, but he should be operating just as normal. At the finish, you will come in, the finish will be the normal finish on the track under the arch, but we will not obviously be high-fiving and hugging you. There will be food and drinks there. You'll collect your own awards. You'll collect takeaway, hot dog, veggie dog, and hot drink if you want it, or cold drink, and your bags. And then we need to ask you, please, to move immediately on to a hotel or have a lift arranged or grab a taxi to where your onward journey is. We are not allowed to have more than 15 people at the track at any one time. Now, that is an agreement between us and the Julie Rose Stadium. It means you can wait elsewhere in the venue, in the area, but not on the track. And obviously, if we're filling up the car park with tired runners who are sitting around waiting, that's not going to be good either. So if you're planning on just finishing and then just sort of kicking out and having a chat at the finish in years like we have done historically, that unfortunately is not going to be possible this time. It's one of the most gutting aspects of this situation that we can't have that kind of get together at the end and decompress and talk about your races. We're going to have to do that afterwards. Please, please arrange onward transport or accommodation. The bus will leave at 1:15. At the moment, there are only 22 of you on the bus anyway. You will need to wear a mask on the bus. We will tell you which seats you can sit in on the bus to make sure social distancing is maintained on the bus. I realise to this point I have just neglected to show you what the course markings look like. You're on the North Downs Way for 98% of the race, 97% of the race. The acorn and anything that says North Downs Way, they are your guiding lights. Where you deviate from the course at Box Hill and you deviate off the North Downs Way at Knockholt Pound to reach the 50-mile point, you won't be able to miss them because they will be signed very, very heavily and or marshalled. Okay, so those 2 points, you're not on the North Downs Way within the race, we will make sure that you can't miss them. The final 3 miles are not on the North Downs Way. Okay, so a mile after Dunn Street Aid Station, we bring you off the North Downs Way. You'll all be looking for it at that point anyway, and we will sign obviously heavily from there down to the track. Our signs are these pink arrows and this red and white tape, which has a reflective strip in it. You'll notice the arrow also has reflective on it, okay? If it's not these two things, or a giant yellow sign that says Centurion, or that acorn, it's not ours. Almost no signage should be out there now because there have been no other events this year, but just in case you see any other signage, ignore it. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything. If I've forgotten anything, please check the notes below this video because I will add it in afterwards in text form. I'm sure because of the amount of stuff I'm mentioning here that I won't have remembered everything. So please just double check the notes before you go. Thank you so much to all of you for running. Stay safe. If you've got any symptoms pre-race, please don't come and threaten, the health and safety of everybody else. Please make a smart decision. This race will be here again next year for you. Please stay safe, and we'll see you Saturday morning between 5 and 7 o'clock. Thanks, everybody.